My name is Ranveer. In this story of mine, something happened to me that I had never imagined could happen. Something that would lead me to change a very important decision in my life. I was the biggest jeweler in the city and crafted jewelry. People came to me from far and wide to place jewelry orders. One day, a newlywed bride came to me to place a jewelry order. She said she was ready to pay any amount I asked for, but she wanted a design of her choice. She showed me a photo of a jewelry set on her mobile and insisted that she needed the exact same jewelry within 2 days. Her demand seemed strange to me because even the simplest designs usually take around 10 days to complete. Since she was willing to pay any price, I decided to design her jewelry myself. I worked tirelessly and the stress left me unable to sleep. When I finally fell asleep, I had a strange dream that terrified me. In the dream, I saw the same bride looking very troubled and tense, as if she was deeply unhappy in her life. She said to me, "I will never forgive you. You have wronged me greatly." The dream shook me so much that I woke up startled, and after that, I couldn't sleep peacefully at night. Every time I tried to sleep, I would see the same bride in my dreams. Since childhood, I had witnessed extreme poverty. I was about 12 years old when a short circuit caused a fire in our house, burning everything to ashes. Whatever little we had left was also destroyed, plunging us into deeper poverty. There were 2 brothers and 2 sisters in my family, but it seemed as if all of us brothers were destined to struggle. Despite our efforts, the 3 of us couldn't change the fate of our household. My childhood was spent in severe hardship. My father passed away from a heart attack, likely caused by the stress of our situation. After his death, the shadow of a father was lifted from our heads. At that time, I needed my father the most because I was the youngest son in the family. My mother also became ill, and I had no understanding of the world. My 2 elder brothers were very straightforward, and the 3 of us brothers had seen so many struggles that we lost trust in our relatives as well. My eldest brother was married, while the middle brother was unmarried, and I was only 12 years old then. My eldest brother earned 10,000 rupees per month, which was our only source of income. My middle brother and I didn't work, as we had never needed to while our father was alive. My mother always taught me how to take responsibility for my family and protect them. She said that as life changes, so do our responsibilities. After my father's death, my eldest brother, burdened by household problems, moved into a rented house with his wife and children, leaving the rest of us behind. Later, my middle brother also married according to his wishes and moved out with his wife to live separately, just like my eldest brother. Now, all the responsibilities fell on me. However, I couldn't abandon my mother and sisters. I didn't want to leave them alone. I had seen how relationships change and was well aware of the ways of the world. Perhaps this is the time when we truly see the difference between our own and outsiders. My mother always warned me that the world is harsh. I had always obeyed her, but I was still very naive about the world's selfishness. I was still at an age where I should have been playing and having fun. I wasn't even fully grown up yet. But my mother started teaching me important life lessons at a young age. Seeing my brothers and relatives, I also learned that one should never run away from responsibilities. Sometimes, these responsibilities can create distances even among loved ones. Our brothers had stopped even checking on us. My mother said, "You are the only support for us, mother and daughters." We had given up hope from our brothers, but my father's family was very large. While he was alive, everyone seemed close, but after his death, they gradually drifted apart. My mother's family was also large, but when poverty and misery struck us, even her family left us alone. After the fire incident and the departure of my brothers, no one checked on us or asked how we were doing. No one cared about the hardships we were going through. My eldest sister started sewing clothes, and my younger sister began tutoring children to help manage household expenses. I couldn't live this kind of life anymore, so I opened a small cosmetics shop. I was very good at my studies, and my father had dreamed that I would study well and bring honor to the family. But given our circumstances, I couldn't afford my education. To honor my father's dream, I studied hard, But when there was no money left for fees, I had to quit school. My mother wanted me to fulfill my father's dream, but our situation didn't allow it. Perhaps this was what fate had in store for us. When I started running the cosmetic shop, I earned only 20 to 25 rupees a day. The women in our neighborhood mostly used branded products, which made it hard to make decent sales. I used to only sell local goods, which is why my items didn't sell much. Life was just passing by like this, and most of my time was spent at the shop. I would stay idle all day. Sometimes a woman would come by, buy one or two things, and leave. But no one bought more than that. I started missing the moments I had spent with my father. I would always wonder when our fate would change and we would be rich one day. Due to our poverty, all our relatives stayed away from us. No one liked us. Nowadays, it's all about money. Those who have money also have people around them, along with relatives. On the other hand, both my brothers' lives were going fairly well because they earned their own income and spent it on their families. However, somewhere along the way, they had forgotten about their mother, sisters, and brother. My mother had high hopes for them, unaware that one day her own sons would change so much that they wouldn't even look back at their family. Back when my father was alive, none of the brothers dared to even raise their voice. But now both of them had moved away with their families. They didn't care how we were surviving. There was a time when we had our loved ones, and now there's no one. My sisters cried endlessly because they worked so hard, yet we still couldn't make ends meet. Whenever I tried to look for work outside, I was denied due to my age. Our survival had become extremely difficult. Somehow, we were barely making it through, and the household expenses were being managed with great difficulty. Eventually, I was forced to do something. One of my friend's fathers owned a jewelry shop, so I went to him and requested him to give me a job. I told him I'd work even for a low wage because something was better than nothing. Reluctantly, he hired me to carry and deliver goods. That was the first day I ever stepped out of my house to work. That day, tears filled not only my eyes, but also my mother's and sister's eyes. They hugged me tightly and cried. On my way to the shop, I tried hard to hold back my tears, thinking about how my father's dream couldn't be fulfilled and how I couldn't become a successful person. Without money for education, how could I become a rich man? No one was even willing to offer me a proper job. After much struggle, I had finally gotten this job. I resolved to work hard and improve my family's condition. That day, not just my father's dream, but mine too, seemed to shatter. All my efforts from childhood to now had gone in vain. My friend was still studying while I was going to work at his father's shop. I had to start from scratch, in a field I had no knowledge of. Little did I know what challenges awaited me at this age. At the jewelry shop, my only job was to deliver goods, and I spent the rest of the day idle. The owner paid me 50 rupees or 100 rupees per day, which I handed to my mother, and she managed the household expenses with it. Days passed like this, and I worked at the jewelry shop for 6 years. The shop also designed jewelry, and I observed the designing process carefully. I absorbed everything I saw and gradually started understanding it. My daily wage increased from 100 rupees to 300 rupees, and I turned 18. One day, the shop owner seemed very troubled because he was receiving complaints about the jewelry designs. The market demanded modern and fancy designs, but the shop was producing outdated ones. I insisted to the owner that I could design jewelry. He didn't believe me at first and refused, but I went ahead and made a jewelry set on my own. The owner liked my design very much. I worked hard and showed him new designs, which he appreciated. Gradually, the owner became pleased with my work and increased my salary. Our family's conditions started improving. I worked tirelessly, and my salary increased from 300 rupees a day to 40,000 rupees a month. My sisters no longer needed to work. I handed my earnings to my mother, and she began saving for my sister's dowry. Both my sisters were getting older, so my mother found good matches for them and arranged their weddings. Both of them got married on the same day. When I came home, my mother would be so happy to see me that her happiness alone would take away all my exhaustion. It felt like all my hard work had finally paid off. After years of working, our situation had significantly improved. The shop owner's health started to decline, and he entrusted me with the entire business. Meanwhile, my friend went to America to study. Life went on, and I turned 24. Both my sisters were happily settled in their in-laws' homes. The journey from age 12 to 24 was filled with hard work. One day, the shop owner passed away. My friend, his only son, returned to take over the business. His mother had already passed away. By this time, I had saved some money, and I rented a shop to start my own jewelry business. I began selling jewelry designed by me. My shop became so famous that people came from far and wide to place orders. My life completely transformed and happiness returned to our lives. I bought the shop I had rented, and later I purchased 2 more houses. I became a renowned jeweler in the city, known for offering good designs and affordable jewelry. People used to say that my shop provided beautiful jewelry at reasonable prices. Eventually, I shifted from simple jewelry to crafting heavy jewelry, as there was high demand for bridal jewelry during the wedding season. I started creating both simple and heavy designs, which brought me great profit. Customers would place custom orders and pay whatever price I asked for, and my work gained fame far and wide. Wealthy families, whose women spent millions on clothes, also came to my shop to buy jewelry for weddings or special functions. This is how my luck turned around, and my business kept growing. The tough days of our lives were over. Though I couldn't fulfill my father's dream of getting an education, I fulfilled his other dream. He wanted me to become a successful person, someone with a name, and I achieved that. I became a successful person, well known throughout the city. There was no shortage of anything in our house. Big companies started collaborating with me, and my jewelry began being supplied to them. I eventually opened a large showroom for my jewelry and established 2 or 3 branches in different cities. I hired many people to work for me, focusing solely on designing while my employees managed the rest. During festivals like Diwali and Holi, my showroom was crowded with customers 24/7. I had earned so much money that I would send lots of gifts to my sisters' homes during every festival. My sisters, who lived with great respect in their in-laws' homes, became even happier as their status in their families rose. Even my brothers, who had once distanced themselves, started visiting our house again. But I didn't say anything to them because they were not only my brothers but also my mother's sons. It didn't matter to me that they came to our house now. My heart finally felt at peace because the happiness I wanted to give my mother and sisters was now theirs. However, my mother now desired to see me get married. She kept insisting on finding me a bride, but I wasn't ready for marriage yet. I wanted to focus on growing my business even further. One day, my mother was adamant and started crying. She said, "I feel lonely in this house now. My daughters are married, and I don't want to bring your elder brother's wives into this house because they abandoned us during our tough times. I want to see my youngest and dearest son get married." What my mother told me next shook me to the core. I could have lived my entire life alone, but I couldn't accept what she revealed. My mother told me that when my elder brother got married, my father had also arranged my marriage with my sister-in-law's younger sister. My sister-in-law's family now wanted me to marry her. But I wasn't ready for this relationship because my sister-in-law had caused conflicts and separated my brother from us. If her younger sister came into our family, I feared she would do the same and distance my mother from me. I told my mother that the decision made in childhood was no longer relevant. I had never forgiven my brother or sister-in-law for what they did. So how could I accept her sister as my wife? My mother said, "Son, this match was decided by your father because he liked both your sister-in-law and her younger sister. Her sister might not be very beautiful, but she's intelligent. She did something that impressed your father and made him finalize the proposal." But I firmly told my mother that I wouldn't marry into their family. I hadn't even seen my sister-in-law's sister since childhood and didn't know what she was like. All I knew was that she didn't want to marry anyone else. And now that our circumstances had improved, her family wanted her to marry me. Despite this, I refused the match. My mother also declined the proposal on my behalf. Later, my mother found another match for me. She had seen the girl and liked her. I wanted to forget the past and I succeeded in doing so. One day, while I was sitting in my shop, a girl walked in with a handsome and smart looking man. Despite working in this business for years, I had never paid attention to any girl before. But for some reason, this girl seemed familiar, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. Suddenly, the man said they wanted to place an order. My gaze shifted back to the girl. I couldn't stop looking at her for some reason. The man said, "My fiancé wants to show you a design. She wants a jewelry set made exactly like this." The girl handed me her phone and said she wanted the jewelry set made according to the design shown in the photo. She seemed visibly upset. The design was heavy and elaborate, but I agreed to make it without hesitation. The man said they needed it within 2 days because they were getting married soon. I said, "But sir, this is a very heavy jewelry design, so you'll have to wait for about a week." The boy insisted and said, "This is my wife's favorite design, and our wedding is the day after tomorrow, so I need this set by then. If you agree, I am ready to pay you any amount you ask." I had no choice but to accept their order. The boy paid me in advance and they both left. But for some reason, the innocent face of that girl kept flashing before my eyes, as if she had some complaint against me. I couldn't understand why she kept staring at me, and why I couldn't take my eyes off her face. I spent the entire night working on the design. By the time I finished the set, it was 6 o'clock in the morning. Strangely, I completed the design much faster than I ever had before, especially for something so intricate. Perhaps that girl was very lucky. That's why my hands worked so quickly. But then I remembered her strange mood. Despite having such a handsome husband, why did she seem so upset? Her husband wasn't just good looking but also wealthy, going to the extent of having the special jewelry set made for her. Yet her mood troubled me. I sat quietly in my shop for a long time, trying to reason with myself. She was just a customer. Why was I so concerned about her? Why was I taking so much tension about her? After some time, I went home, as I was exhausted from staying awake all night. I lay down to sleep, but just 10 minutes later, I had a dream. That girl appeared in my dream, complaining to me, saying, "I know you. I still remember you." This shook me awake, and I sat up, startled, wondering what connection I had with this girl. I had completed her order, so why did she seem to have complaints against me? And how did she know me? Feeling uneasy, I reasoned that sometimes our minds hold on to certain thoughts, and those same thoughts find their way into our dreams. Thinking this, I calmed myself and went back to sleep. The entire day passed while I slept, and by the time I woke up, it was nighttime, and the shop had already been closed by my workers. I decided to stay at home that evening. The next day, I went to the shop and spent the entire day waiting for that girl or her husband to come collect the jewelry set. From what the boy had said, I assumed their wedding was that day. Since he had already paid the advance, I was certain they would come, but no one came. This left me worried, wondering why they hadn't come to collect the set. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, but no one came for the jewelry. I kept it safely aside, just in case. 3 months passed, and preparations for my own wedding began at home. My mother wanted me to get married as soon as possible, especially since my match had already been finalized, and the girl's family was eager for the marriage. I had no reason to delay, so I agreed. The girl's family sent us the wedding date, and my mother wanted to invite as many relatives as possible to the wedding. I left the decision to her. My sister's weddings had been very simple, but my mother wanted to celebrate mine with great pomp and show. My elder brother and his wife arrived a month early to help with the wedding. However, I noticed that my sister-in-law seemed upset for some reason. My mother had invited them for her happiness, so I chose to stay silent and not ruin her joy. But my mother surprised me with one request. She asked me to accompany her to my brother's in-law's house to give them the wedding invitation. She said, "We broke off your childhood engagement with their daughter, so they may still hold complaints against us. If we go there, we can resolve everything." I didn't want to go to my sister-in-law's parents' house under any circumstances, so I told my mother to take my sister-in-law along instead. I refused outright. My mother and my sister-in-law eventually went without me, and they happily accepted the invitation. I couldn't help but think how circumstances change relationships. Whether good or bad, people's behavior changes based on the situation. The house was filled with a wedding atmosphere. My sisters were very happy, and relatives kept coming and going. I spent most of my time at the shop and only came home at night. Since it was wedding season, the shop was always busy. One day, I had to come home for some work, and I saw a group of girls sitting in the house. They were my sister's friends and their sisters, along with some girls from the neighborhood. As soon as they saw me, they started congratulating me. But then, my eyes fell on a girl sitting quietly in one corner. I hadn't noticed her earlier, but when my elder sister said to her, "Come, join us. You've been sitting alone since you arrived. Let's have fun together." My attention turned toward her. When I looked closely at her, I felt as if the ground beneath my feet had vanished. It was the same girl who had ordered the jewelry set and never came to collect it. The same girl whose sad face had haunted me for so long. I was shocked to see her and couldn't believe my eyes. For a moment, I felt as if I was imagining things. I kept staring at her, trying to process everything. Suddenly, she looked at me too, but it seemed as if she was trying to avoid me. I quickly went to my room without saying anything to her or anyone else. I decided not to ask her any questions. But her presence brought back all the unanswered questions in my mind. Why had she appeared in my dream, complaining to me? Why hadn't she collected her jewelry set, despite having it made urgently for her wedding? And why was her husband so eager to get it for her? I was pondering over all these questions in my mind. Had she gotten the jewelry set made from somewhere else? Or did she need the jewelry set urgently, so she couldn't wait for the one I made and bought it from another place instead? The most baffling thing was, what was she doing at our house? And why was she still so upset today? Even now, I was restless to know the answers to all these questions. But I couldn't understand why I was feeling so restless. What connection did I have with her that made me so anxious for her? Perhaps something from the dream involving her had disturbed me deeply. I kept thinking for a long time about giving her the jewelry set because I had brought it home with me. But I couldn't gather the courage to talk to her. I wanted to talk to her, but with so many people in the house, how could I? Suddenly, I got a personal call and went to my room to attend to it. But when I finished the call and came out, she had disappeared. She was nowhere to be seen in the house, and it seemed like she had left. There were still 3 days left until my wedding, and the house was abuzz with music and celebration. My elder sister and sister-in-law had invited all the women and girls to dance and sing at our place. I thought if she came to our house the next day, I would somehow return her jewelry set because I had already received the payment for it and couldn't keep it with me. The next day, I left my shop early and came home. The house was alive with music, and some girls were dancing. I looked at all the girls closely, but she was nowhere to be seen. I then started looking for my elder sister to ask her about the girl because I had seen her talking to her that day. Just then, I spotted my mother and told her that I needed to speak to my elder sister because she was nowhere to be seen, and I had something important to ask her. The noise in the house was so loud that my mother couldn't understand what I was saying. So I decided to look for my sister myself. Suddenly, I remembered something I needed to do in my room, so I went there. While in the room, I thought I'd put the jewelry set in a bag and asked my sister to give it to the girl herself. I picked up the bag with the jewelry set and stepped out of the room. Just then, my younger sister-in-law came running and snatched the bag from my hand. I tried to stop her, but she insisted on opening the bag, saying, "Show us what you've brought for your wife." I didn't talk much with my younger or elder sister-in-law, but now I had to insist that she not open the bag. I kept telling her not to open it, but she didn't listen. When she saw the jewelry set, she got excited and said, "Wow, brother-in-law, you've brought such a beautiful jewelry set for your wife." Then she began showing it to all the guests one by one. Suddenly, my elder sister snatched the set from her hand and said, "Perhaps my brother is planning to gift this to his bride during the post-wedding rituals, which is why he didn't want anyone to see it. But you've gone ahead and opened it for everyone." My sister quickly packed the set and put it back in the bag, handing it over to me. Everyone praised the set, saying, "It's a very beautiful jewelry set. It looks like Ranveer has designed it with a lot of love and dedication." This made me happy, but it also got me thinking, did I really design this set with so much love and dedication? It felt like this set was very special. But the real question was, why would I put so much love and dedication into a set for her? I didn't even know her, and anyway, she might already be married. She had come to my shop with her fiancé. Still, for some reason, feelings for her kept surfacing in my heart. Everyone in the house had already seen the jewelry set. I told them, "My sister is right. This is a customer's set. I need to deliver it to the customer. The customer hasn't picked it up yet, so I've kept it safe until now." My sister then took me to a room, held my hand and said, "Ranveer, you said you wanted to discuss something personal with me. Tell me, what's the matter?" I told her I wanted to ask about the girl she was talking to that day. "Who is she? How do you know her?" My sister couldn't understand whom I was talking about. When I described the girl to her and explained for a long time, she finally understood. What she told me after that was shocking enough to shake me to my core. She told me that the girl was my ex-fiancé, whose engagement to me had been fixed when I was just 10 years old. Hearing this, I was shocked. For the first time, I felt regret for rejecting someone. She looked so innocent and upset. Maybe she wasn't happy with her marriage to that guy. Who knows? The guy might have been good-looking, but you can't judge a person's nature based on their appearance. It's possible that the guy, despite being handsome, had a bad nature. Perhaps his behavior towards her wasn't right, which might be why she seemed so upset. Her parents must have arranged the marriage thinking the guy was good and smart. But it's only later that one learns about a person's nature and behavior. Maybe it was partially my fault too. But there was no point in regretting it now. She was already married, and I was about to get married too. The time had passed, and no matter how much I wanted to, I couldn't console her anymore. My sister left after telling me all this, but I was still lost in those thoughts. Today was my haldi ceremony, and guests had started arriving. Along with my sister-in-law's family, she came to our house too. As soon as I stepped out of my room, I saw that she was at our house. I tried to talk to her but couldn't muster the courage to meet her eyes. I told her, "Your jewelry set is with me. Come to my room with me and I'll give it to you. If I give it to you in front of everyone, they might misunderstand us." She came with me to my room and I took out her jewelry set from my cupboard and handed it to her. I asked, "Why didn't you take this jewelry set with you to wear at your wedding? This was custom made specifically for your wedding. It's been with me for quite some time. And when I saw you at your home, I thought I should return your belonging to you." Looking at the jewelry set, she fell silent for a moment and then said, "I don't need this jewelry set anymore because I won't wear it, and I have no use for it now. You can gift this to your wife on my behalf." I said, "No, your husband got this set custom designed as per your request. This is your choice and he even paid for it. How can I keep it with me?" She started crying and said, "That man is not my husband." I was shocked and asked, "Then why did he call you his soon-to-be wife?" She replied, "I was supposed to marry that man, but I didn't like him, so I refused the marriage to my parents." I asked, "What do you mean? Your wedding was just 2 days away. Why did you refuse to marry 2 days before your wedding?" She said, "I just didn't like him and didn't want to marry him." Hearing this, I was stunned because there was nothing wrong with that man. He wasn't unattractive. In fact, he was smart and was even getting an expensive jewelry set designed as per his future wife's wishes. I asked, "Was there something wrong with that man? Did he trouble you, which led you to refuse the marriage?" She replied, "No, there was nothing wrong with him and he never troubled me. The truth is, I refused because I am in love with someone else." I was taken aback. "Who is he?" I asked. She replied, "It's you. I've loved you since childhood. Our families fixed our relationship when we were kids, and since then, I have dreamed of a future with you. But when I saw my sister struggling with poverty in your home, my parents decided that they wouldn't marry me into the same household. They didn't want their younger daughter to face the same hardships, but I always wanted to marry you. That's why I kept trying to convince my parents for you. Whenever a marriage proposal came for me, I rejected it and stood firm in my love for you. I even prayed day and night for your family situation to improve. And when your financial condition improved, my sister and your sister-in-law came to our house to convince my parents. They agreed to the match, and my sister promised to talk to her mother-in-law about it. But perhaps this was never written in my destiny. When your mother approached you regarding our relationship, you declined it. That was the moment when my last hope shattered. When you refused, I told my parents to marry me off wherever they wanted. My father arranged my engagement with a friend of my brother's. The man was smart, wealthy, and perfect for me. My father made a good decision. There was nothing wrong with him. But when he took me to your shop to get a jewelry set designed for our wedding, I was reminded of the bond we had since childhood. Although we spent our childhood mostly unaware of each other, the talks about our relationship within the family always kept the love for you alive in my heart. When the time for my marriage came, I decided not to go through with it. I told my parents I didn't like him, but the truth was that I couldn't imagine marrying anyone other than you. I decided I wouldn't marry until you did. Until then, I would hold on to the hope that your heart might change. But the day you marry, I will marry too, as that hope will be gone forever. Hearing her words, I was stunned. She had loved me so deeply and selflessly that she rejected a man who was far better than me in every way, just because she held on to her love for me. I held her hand and said, I'm not married yet, and I want to fulfill the hope you've kept alive. I want to marry you. Will you marry me? She looked at me in shock and said, I've loved you since childhood, so I'll never refuse. Do you really want to marry me? I replied, Yes, I want to marry you. Please forgive me for taking out my frustrations on you and ending our relationship, but now I want to make it right. She said, But you're about to get married. What about the girl who's waiting for you? I reassured her, Don't worry about her. Leave everything to me. All I want is to marry you and honor the bond our families once made. I went to my mother and told her about my decision to marry her. I asked her to call off the other marriage. My mother was overjoyed, and my sister-in-law was even happier. They both apologized to the other family and ended the arrangement. On the same day, in the same wedding venue where I was supposed to marry someone else, I married the girl who had loved me selflessly since childhood. Today, I'm very happy with my wife because I have a life partner who loves me for who I am, not for my wealth. She rejected a man far wealthier than me simply because she loved me. My family is happy, my brother and sister-in-law have moved in with us, and my business is thriving. Friends, I hope you liked our story. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to press the notification bell for updates.